Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today, I am joined by writer, musician, storyteller, and businessman, Ray Hartjen. Ray has a professional career that spans over 5 decades, and he's made a lot of changes and a lot of pivots. He also does a lot of online stuff and has been quoted by the media. You know, he talks about things on his site spanning from sports to business, all kind of stuff. Ray is an amazing man, so it's going to be amazing to bring to you all of his amazing stories, and we'll even throw some sports questions in there because I know it seems like he likes the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Ray, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, Curveball, thanks so much for having me. You know, that introduction, he's talking about my career spanning over 5 decades just reminds me, I'm getting up there in age, right? my wife calls it leveling up, like in a video game. So maybe I'll think of it that way, huh?
Absolutely. Well, why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a writer and a musician, and as Curtis said, throughout my career, I've had a lot of different types of positions in different types of industries, but it really comes down to storytelling. And I'm a storyteller and at heart, and whether it's through music or through articles and now books. So I've written a couple of books, and I'm excited to talk to you today, Curtis, about my latest book. It's called Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. It's a cancer patient memoir. Almost 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with the blood cancer multiple myeloma. And, it's like any, I think person who's diagnosed with a serious and chronic condition. In this case, multiple myeloma is an incurable cancer. It has an impact on your life. And, a lot of times I think, maybe even before I was diagnosed, I always kind of thought of these as negative impacts. But I wanted to talk to you today, Curtis, your listeners, and also through the book, I wanted to talk to patients and patient caregivers and patient allies, about the things that, cancer has added to my life. I still have all those same roles I had before I was diagnosed with cancer, but now I have new roles like cancer patient advocate, caregiver advocate, and fundraiser and the like. So, I wish I kind of learned these life lessons without the diagnosis of multiple myeloma. In a way, taking this diagnosis and coupling it with a growth mindset has really set me toward a path where I feel much better. I have this sense of inner peace, and well-being about focusing and doing the things that mean most to me, as opposed to, wasting time on the minutia that, sometimes we have a tendency as people to get caught up in. Does that make sense?
That makes great sense. And, you definitely have a lot of courage, and you're definitely, doing a lot despite your diagnosis for the cancer community, I guess, the cancer patient community, if you want to go more into that.
Soon after my diagnosis, I revisited a exercise that I had facilitated a number of times throughout my career. It's a timeline exercise, and it's really pretty simple. And if you've done one before, all you listeners out there, whether you get an actual, piece of paper and a pen or pencil, or just do this in your mind, just start from your left and draw a horizontal straight line to your right. And, at the far left-hand side where you started, make a little vertical tick mark. And at the far right-hand side where you stopped, make a vertical tick mark. And what you've just created there is your timeline. The left represents your birth. The right represents your death. And then the difficult part comes is when you take a look at that timeline and you think, okay, where are you now? Where are you today? Now, we know tomorrow's not promised, right? But where do you think you are today on this timeline? And that's your third little vertical tick mark. Everything to the left of you is your past, and you can't change it, but it's part of what makes you, you. and everything to the right is what you have left on the planet, right? So, when I got diagnosed, I redid that. Geez, curveball, man, before my diagnosis, I was going to live forever, right? I always have my tick mark like right there in the middle or whatever. But this diagnosis kind of like shook me awake. It said, it kind of reached out for the paper and said, dude, man, wake up. You have a tendency, Ray, to take things for granted. And prior to my diagnosis, and even today at times, I take time in particular for granted. Before my diagnosis, I certainly took all tomorrows and next weeks and next months, next year, sometimes in some instances, the next decade or two, I just took them for granted that they would be there. And I wanted to snap that out of me saying, geez, if you want to get things accomplished, let's use up today. Well, what are you going to do? And then as I thought more about it, Curtis, I thought about it. It's just not the time that I took for granted. It's the people in my life and my relationships that meant so much to me. My phone is filled with these contacts of these people that are contacts for a reason, right? I care for them. I love them. But I would have a tendency to think like, oh man, I need to chat up my friend Curveball, but I'll do it tomorrow. Curtis will be there tomorrow or next week. I'm busy or whatever. And, kind of taking those things for granted and, recognizing, the fact that, today is a gift, and it's a gift that not everybody got to receive. There are a lot of people that never got today. And, I'm blessed to have today. So, I want to be able to, utilize today to its utmost. And, as a musician, I'm always looking for these kind of, cool little sayings to put on the back of a t-shirt, because it allows us to sell t-shirts at gigs, and that makes us more money, and that puts more food on my table, right? Right, Curtis? You know what it's like being a musician. I kind of developed this idea or this motto of, if not today, when? If not now, when? And that kind of got me off of taking time for granted. And people and relationships, and that motto is on the back of a t-shirt, and it's something I try to live my life with. But it's also morphed into another motto, and that motto is punch today in the face. The idea that today is that gift, and it's that gift that not everyone got an opportunity to receive. So I want to use it up. I want to use up every last drop of today. And in the old cowboy sense and the horseback riding, it's ride today hard and put it up wet. I want today. I want to grab today's attention. I want today to know that Ray Hartjen was here. I want to use it up. And then, at the end of the day, when I'm laying in bed with a sense of satisfaction that I've accomplished the things that mean the most to me, and did it with the people that mean the most to me, I can kind of give tomorrow a glance and maybe give it a wink and a point a finger at it and say, tomorrow I'm coming for you next.
Yeah, I like that saying, punch today in the face. And you talked about being a musician, so go ahead and tell the listeners about your band and what kind of music you do and how you got started and everything you guys are up to.
Yeah, I got started. Music's always it always strikes me as odd as people say, like, I don't like music, and I really don't believe them, because I think we're born with music. I mean, we have this rhythm section that's in our chest, our heart and our lungs, and they're beating, and there's this rhythm that just goes with life. And music has always spoken to me, and as a kid, I liked Elvis Presley. I wanted to be Elvis, but I thought, man, maybe I can't be Elvis, but maybe I could be his guitar player, James Burton, right? So I picked up guitar, and much like a lot of guys, you pick up the guitar to try to impress the ladies, right? The early influence was like Elvis, and kind of like that early rock and roll. My musical life changed the first time I heard a Van Halen record. Like a lot of folks, Eddie Van Halen became my guitar hero. And, I was the hair metal warrior through the 80s and 90s. But, I'm almost 60 years old now, Curveball. Those days of, dragging out all the equipment, the amplifiers and all that, setting up for a 10 o'clock start time, getting done at 2, getting home at 3 or later. That has less and less appeal as I get older and older and older. So about 10 years ago, I coupled up with a friend of mine. We used to jam a lot, but we never performed together. So we created a 2-piece acoustic band called the Chronic Padres. Being blessed to here in Northern California with a treasure trove of wineries and breweries and the like. We bill ourselves as Northern California's happy hour house band. We kind of specialize in the happy hours in the beer garden and the wine tasting room or what have you. Stripping down our favorite songs, playing them acoustically, kind of giving a nod to those great MTV Unplugged episodes of the early '90s, where it seemed like everybody's favorite episode was when a rock and roll band came and stripped it down to its bare acoustics. And so we play some of our favorite rock and roll songs, our favorite country songs, because once again the ladies like it, and we got to give a nod to picking up instruments in the first place. So we'll do some country, and then we have our original music that we do. But from time to time we find that when we play other people's music and people music that people are more familiar with, they tend to like that a little bit better while they're sipping their beers. You know what I mean?
Okay, everybody, it's Michael E. Cullen II.
And I'm Sesame and Carta from the All Too Real 2 podcast. We're passionate about movies, TV, and pretty much all things pop culture.
Dive into the chaos of failed sitcoms, direct-to-video sequels, and the quirky realms of cinema and TV.
Join us every Thursday for your dose of All Too Real 2 entertainment.
We'll guide you through debates like whether Howard the Duck qualifies as a superhero.
Ponder if Larry the Cable Guy could be the new Rock or Schwarzenegger.
Discover if some shows and movies should have stayed in the cutting room.
Ever heard of a sitcom featuring that dictator with the funny mustache? Well, we watched it.
We're dedicated to unraveling the peculiarities of pop culture, sometimes with awesome guests.
So, if you're into the eccentric world of pop culture,
listen and subscribe to All Too Real 2.
Available wherever you find podcasts
and on Age of Radio.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean. Music definitely sounds good while you're sipping your beer.
Yeah, I like to play the songs that people are familiar with, and particularly it's so cool to play songs that people sing along to. And one of the things I like to do, we do a typical gig, it might be 3 hours long, a little over 40 songs, which is a lot for Scott, my singer, to sing. So I'll pitch in on vocals for a dozen songs or so. And one of the things I like to do is to take songs popularized by female vocalists and do them my own way. Because what's a 59-year-old man supposed to sound like singing Dolly Parton's Jolene? It probably sounds exactly the way I do it. If a woman tries to tackle Jolene, you've got that apples to apples comparison, and how can someone stack up to Dolly Parton or Lady Gaga or Miranda Lambert or somebody like that? I like to tackle some of the songs made popular by female vocalists and give it my own slant and see how it works. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least we have fun trying.
Most definitely. Let's jump on some sports real quick. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who were the best players in the 1970s, and what were your most memorable moments in watching the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 70s?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Curveball. That book, the first book that I wrote was called Immaculate: How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. And it wasn't my idea. It was my co-writer's idea, Tom Olenek. And Tom is a Yinzer. He is from Pittsburgh, and he loves his city. And for years and years and years, he had developed this thesis that Pittsburgh had to face a very difficult deindustrialization transformation in the mid 70s through the mid 80s, and it was a painful process for the city. But Pittsburgh came out of the other end of that painful process, kind of smelling like a rose, particularly in comparison to its Rust Belt cousins like Cleveland and Detroit and Buffalo. Pittsburgh right now is, it shows up all the time on the world's most livable cities list. They're world renowned for academics, medical research, healthcare, technology, robotics, and the like, and Tom always had this philosophy, or not always, but maybe for 20, 25 years of this, when the city was struggling, in search of its heroes, they found them in a pretty unlikely place, and that unlikely place was their up to 1972, a pretty horrible football team, and for the first 40 years of existence, they couldn't get anything right. And then all of a sudden they got everything right. Won 4 Super Bowls over 6 years, and kind of, it was a team that was built in the mirror image of the city, blue collar, hard nosed, gritty, bring your lunch pail to work type of football team. And Tom would keep talking about this book to his friends and family, but he's not a writer. He's a biotech executive. And this ties me back to, if not now, when? One time he's talking to me about it, and I just grabbed him by the shoulders and I said, "Hey, Tom, if not now, when? Let's get started on this book. And if we should ever veer off of your vision, well, then we'll rein it back in and try to straighten out and do it, do something a little bit more true to your vision." But once we started, we never stopped, and we published the book, and and we're very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. It's selling well, and the story seems to resonate with folks. You asked about my favorite Steelers players. I can tell you, I was born in Texas, in Houston, and as a good Texan in the 70s, I was a Dallas Cowboys fan, and the Pittsburgh Steelers were famously beat the Cowboys in 2 Super Bowls. My second favorite team was the Houston Oilers, being a good Texan. And the Houston Oilers never could break through and win the AFC Central Division from the Steelers. And in fact, they lost 2 playoff games to them. And then my third favorite team was my mama's favorite team. My mama, just like everybody else's mom, like Kenny Stabler, the Oakland Raiders. So the Raiders were my third favorite team, and they lost 3 very famous playoff games to the Steelers in the 70s. So, growing up in the 70s, the Pittsburgh Steelers were like gum on my shoes. I hated them, but it was funny, and watching in writing the book. I watched a lot of games on YouTube, and just growing to respect the not just the players, but the coaches that put them in the position to perform the best that they can. And when you go through those 70s, Pittsburgh Steelers teams, they're loaded with Hall of Famers, deservingly so. There's people tend to kind of focus on maybe some offensive players like Lynn Swann and John Stallworth, Franco Harris, Terry Bradshaw, Mike Webster. But their defense, led by Mean Joe Green, where I'm watching these old games, and I'm looking at Mean Joe Green just dominate every single play he's on the field. If you're creating a list of the top 10 football players in the history of the NFL, and Joe Green's not on your list in that top 10, you probably need to go revisit your list, because he was amazing. He was Aaron Donald before Aaron Donald, and just a fabulous football player. But other great players, Mel Blount, the linebacking core, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Andy Russell, L.C. Greenwood, Ernie Shavers, Ernie Holmes, excuse me. So many great players and memorable characters. I really enjoyed writing the book, and I hope people enjoy reading it.
Well, what do you feel like the biggest difference is between the NFL today and back in the 70s and 80s? That's question.
That's a great question. You go back to the 70s and you look up at statistics, and you see like a quarterback is having a pretty good year if they complete 50% of their passes. And you forward today in the NFL, if you're not completing like at least 62, 63, 64% of your passes, you're not going to see the football field. The game has turned into this passing type of league, and a lot of it came about with a rule change that was back in the day was called the Mel Blount rule, and that was the rule that forbade defenders to contact wide receivers more than 5 yards down the line of scrimmage. So now you have a quarterback that is, there's another rule too that also impacts the passing game. That was offensive linemen can now use their hands to pass protect. It used to be kind of like put your hands to your sternum, your chest, and kind of block with your arms out. So now quarterbacks in today's NFL. Let's go for a third rule change. You can't even really hit a quarterback in today's NFL. You can't even fall on top of them. It's tackle football. Back in the 70s, a quarterback was just another player. You want to hit him in the head, you want to hit him in the knees, you wanted to fall on top of him, whatever, they were fair game. So, you package those 3 rule changes up now, and a quarterback can can throw a receiver open. If they're under distress in the pocket, they know where the receiver is going to be because of the Mel Blount rule. They're free to run their patterns, so they can throw it to a spot on the field, knowing that their receiver is going to be there to be able to fight for the football. Back in the 70s, quarterback had to make eye contact with the receiver, had to see that receiver, and had to throw it there. And as the passing game has blossomed in today's NFL, the running game has gone away. And you go back to those old football games and watch them on YouTube, which are great. If you're from the generation that I am, going back to YouTube and checking out these games, you get to hear Howard Cosell in the booth, or Dandy Don Meredith and Kurt Gowdy in the booth, and it just brings back these great memories of childhood. It doesn't change some of the plays, like Dallas tight end Jackie Smith, dropping a sure touchdown pass in the Super Bowl that the Cowboys ended up losing to the Steelers. But going back and watching those games, you see that in the 70s it was run the football, possess the football, try not to make foolish penalties so you can win the field position battle, and then over the course of 4 quarters you should come out on top. It was maybe a decade ago, Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Steelers, was talking about a new rookie running back that they had in camp, Rashad Mendenhall, and the press was asking him, what's how's the new running back doing? And Mike Tomlin, I'm paraphrasing him, but he basically said, well, number one, he needs to learn how to protect the quarterback. Number two, he needs to learn how to protect the football, and then we can worry about him running. And I think that's as just a microcosm of the difference between the 70s and in the 2000s in professional football. Now in today's NFL, a running back doesn't even see the football field until they can protect the quarterback and protect the football. Running is the third most important thing for a running back's job description in today's NFL. So I think that's it speaks a lot about the difference in the game today from the game 50 years ago.
Okay, so what advice would you give somebody who has been recently diagnosed with some kind of health condition?
Yeah, I'm glad we're back on this topic. I have found the power of people in dealing with my diagnosis. I am lucky in that I've been married to my wife Lori for 30 years come May. And she's been by my side to share in this battle. Facing a serious health condition is a daunting prospect. We get an unbelievable amount of snail mail, physical mail in our mailbox, every day because of our American health system. We have, care providers, we have pharmaceutical companies, and we have payers, and those are the insurance companies. And the correspondence we get can be overwhelming. And then there's medical testing, there's doctor's appointments, there's taking medication and the like, and then there's the mental and emotional burdens of being diagnosed with a life-changing disease or condition. So when new patients reach out to me, and they frequently do, through the social platforms, I first of all, I want to be there for them because they are beginning the process of reaching out, and I encourage them to reach out to other resources they have. Before my cancer diagnosis, I had never participated in any type of group before. But now, one of the most valued things I think I do for me and also for others is to, actively participate in a cancer patient support group. Everything I know about cancer has been taught to me by other patients, the people who have gone before me. And, part of my, I think, accountabilities and roles now is, there's been times when I needed to, reach forward and hopefully there'd be somebody there to reach back and grab my hand and pull me forward. And I feel good right now. I think there's things I can share and add value. So, when I'm feeling good, how can I reach back and grab, those people behind them and pull them forward with me? Definitely, if you're facing something new, a new diagnosis of something, reach out and reach out to your friends, your family, your trusted people, or just people you think you can count on and give, a group a try. But I like to do also, curveballs, kind of switch this around and talk to your audience members out there who have not been diagnosed with a serious health condition. but they probably know somebody who has. And if you are out there and you do know somebody who's going through a serious health issue, do yourself and do them a favor and reach out to them. Now, a lot of times I think people are hesitant to do it. I know I certainly was in the past because I didn't know what to say. What am I supposed to say? And I let that stop me. And I don't want you, dear listener out there, to let that stop you. Actually, I want you to start right there. Just start and say, man, Curveball, I don't know what to say, but I love you and I care for you. And I want to, have this conversation with you to see, how can I best support you through this? Start there and see what happens. So whether you're a newly diagnosed patient, reach out for help. It takes a village. We all get something in life, and we're all in this together. So reach out and get the help that you need, and just explore. Maybe you don't think you need help, but just it helps to talk and to rekindle those relationships you have with your tribe, your team, your people, right? And if you are in the opposite side of the coin, you haven't been diagnosed with anything, but people out there. Like I said, do them a favor, reach out, and continue to be parts of their lives.
Tell us about any current or upcoming projects that you're working on that people need to know about.
I'm working on music. It's as you know, it's both difficult and easy to produce music and release music. And right now I am going through a bunch of demos. Both for the band and for me as a solo performer, and I'm looking to try to get them produced. Working with a couple of producers, funding is always an issue with that. Yet I've been encouraged. I was on a podcast earlier this month, and they were encouraging me just to post up demos on Spotify. And you know what? I think they might be right. It's not that expensive per song. So, look for me to be throwing up some demos of some songs, both for the Chronic Padres and for me, Ray Hartjen, but just as a solo performer, coming soon. And then, as funding comes about, getting them professionally produced. A big part of what I'm doing right now is promoting the book, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma. It's available at booksellers everywhere. And it's a passion project for me. As I said, cancer for me, it took a little while, but, I was able to reframe my diagnosis and add things to my life. And I very much, wanted to share my story, because of my background. When I got diagnosed, I had the good fortune of being, of participating in some interviews and some videos and some news stories about my diagnosis. Because of that, people reached out to me through social platforms, particularly newly diagnosed patients. And working with them has been truly an honor. It's been a privilege, but it's also been, one-to-one. I thought, what's a way that I can do a one-to-many approach? So that's what motivated me to write this book. And I wanted this book to be from the community to the community for the community. And so I'm thinking about how can I do this as a for the community? Well, hopefully my words, prove to be a valued resource to patients, their caregivers, and their allies. But maybe I can raise money too. So my net writers proceeds are pledged to benefit the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. You can, if anyone's interested in of course, reading the book, you can get the book at any bookseller. You can get it also at my site, rayhartjen.com. You can also, if you don't want to read the book, but you just don't want to donate, the book has a donation page up at the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation's website. So a big part of this current project is releasing the book. Hopefully it's well received. So far the early reviews are very positive, and that makes me feel good. But I truly want this to be a resource and a fundraiser. And then the third and final thing, working on a third book, a childhood passion of mine, as opposed to the Pittsburgh Steelers being a childhood passion of my friend Tom Olenek. Childhood passion of mine was discovering the Indianapolis 500. I read a book back 1971. It chronicled the 1970 race, and it just captured this young kid's imagination. And the Indy 500's been an event that's been, I've been passionate about ever since. And so, I'm writing a book about the Indy 500, and hopefully we'll have that out in bookstores at the end of the year.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, be on the lookout for that. Well, you already gave out your contact info, rayhartjen.com. So close us out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or just any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Yeah, if there's anything that I can do for a listener, please feel free to reach out to me. All of my social channels are my name, Ray Hartjen. That's also my email address, rayhartjen@gmail.com. I learned from a writer in Southern California. His name is Bob Goff. He's written Goff. He's written several books, and one of them really impacted me. Love Does. And he puts his phone number and email in his book. Actually, I think it's just his phone number, but I've used that as a role model. The phone numbers in my phone numbers in my book. I truly want to help patients, fight their cancer. And I want them to, I want to encourage them to punch today in the face, and make the most out of today. Cancer has given me an opportunity to reevaluate, what I was doing in my life, and if there's one thing maybe to have listeners think about at the conclusion of this episode, Curveball, is take a look at your life, and are you spending it just doing the minutia? One of the most impactful trainings I ever took in corporate America. I was actually, I went to a train-the-trainer course to become a facilitator for this course. It's from the time management people at Franklin Covey. Franklin, of course, famous for the Franklin Planner, and the Covey comes from Stephen Covey and the huge bestseller, 7 Habits of Highly Effective. And one of the things that we used to cover in that course is a video. Stephen Covey given a webinar, and in that webinar. It was a seminar before the days of webinars. He had a woman come up on stage and kind of go through this exercise. And this exercise, there was a crystal vase, a transparent crystal vase, and it was about half filled with kind of pea gravel. And then off to the side were these big rocks, and these rocks were labeled with important things like a project at work, a child's school play, a vacation, etc. And so the task was, the vase represented, this is the time that you have available, say like in a day or a week or what have you. And the rocks were, the things that you wanted to get done. And so, try to put those rocks in. And it turned out like the woman, his volunteer from the audience, she was having to make difficult choices. It's like she couldn't fit all the big rocks in. She was like, and then she had to like take her vacation out and put something else in because there's a big deliverable at work or whatever, and that was important. And and it was sad. He even goes, "Oh man, you took away your vacation. That was important. Important family thing, and for you, it's like, yeah." And he goes, "Well, how about this? How about if we change this around a little bit?" And Stephen Covey brings out a second transparent vase. And, it's not like, hey, you get to, an extra week. No. It's like, let's use this instead of the week. And let's try this. Let's take all these big projects and your vacation, the schools, the child's school play, et cetera. Let's put all those big rocks in first. Then let's take all that pea gravel, sprinkle it on top, shake it around. And sure enough, everything fit. Everything fit when you put the big rocks in first, and then you put the little rocks in second, as opposed to when the little rocks are already there and the big rocks, they wouldn't fit in. And the lesson, the analogy is, plan out your day, with the big rocks, the goals and the accountabilities that mean most to you. Do those, and all the minutiae is going to fill in. And technology is such a great tool for us to use, Curveball, but we have a tendency to get kind of get caught up in this technology where it pollutes us into kind of focusing on the minutia, and sometimes we leave the big stuff out. So if not now, when? Put some deadlines to your dreams, achieve those goals, work on those accountabilities that are most meaningful to you, include the people that are most important to your life, and punch today in the face. Curveball, man, I thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you. I love what you're doing here on the show, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share my story with you and your audience.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, rayhartjen.com. Follow, rate, review, share this episode to as many people as possible. If you have any guest or suggestion topics, cjackson102 at cox.net is the place to send them. As always, thank you for listening. And Ray, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
For more information on the Living the Dream podcast, visit www.djcurveball.com. Until next time, stay focused on living the dream.